Have you ever wondered what goes into your favorite brand's digital marketing strategy? I'm Tara, the founder of TJ Creative Agency.
And I'm Audrey, the creative marketing director of TJ Creative Agency. Whether you're an influencer, a business owner, a content creator, or just an overall creative person, we'll teach you how to create the perfect social media strategy and build your brand online. Well, thank you so much, Alyssa, for being on the podcast. I would love if you could kind of just give a little elevator pitch, a little who you are in your own words.
Yes, I'm terrible at these, so I will try to do my very best. But hi, my name is Alyssa. I am currently a social media strategist, manager, full-time content creator. I love helping brands stand out on socials in a very creative yet authentic way. I know authentic is a little bit of a buzzword, but I like to say show up strategically authentic. That's kind of the language that I use with my team,
Yeah.
with my clients. And just making social media social and fun again.
Yeah, I love that. I found you because your videos consistently were popping up on my Reels page.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, these are the most aesthetic social media videos I've seen in a long time. I feel like so many social media managers, like half of them, no shade to anybody, half of them are still doing the like point above their head.
Oh,
Or
right.
the other half is like, here's trending audios you need to use. The way I roll my eyes every time I see those videos. Again, no shade to anybody, but I'm like, you guys, we got to move past this. And then I started seeing your videos and I was like, these are gorgeous and stunning. And they are actually delivering tips to people.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. I just trust me. I had my point era, when I first started because it was really popping off and that's what everyone was doing.
Yeah, no, same. I definitely did the pointing videos. I was there. I actually just went back and archived so many videos on my Instagram. And I have not, like, I don't think I had really archived anything up until this point, but I was seeing some of them and I was like, these are so cringe. Like, I have to take these down. I cannot stand by these anymore.
That's so fun. I should probably do a little archive party, but there also is a part of me that kind of likes to show, the growth of
Yeah,
trust me.
exactly.
I was cringy too. I'm still cringy a little bit now, but
I'm like,
trust
you know
me.
what? If you're posting online, you're a little bit cringy. That's just the rules of posting on the internet.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
that's okay. Who cares?
Totally. Oh my goodness.
Cool.
Yes,
So I
totally
kind of just
agree.
want to jump right into kind of your background. How did you get started working in social media?
Yeah, so I was in university. I was getting my BA in comm and I minored in theater. I grew up doing theater and performing and all of that. And my big dream was to be an actress. I thought I was going to be, the new Brenda Song, Raven
Yeah.
Simone, Miley Cyrus. Like I really wanted to be on screen or on stage. But there also was a little part of me of like, oh, the starving actor life is really scary, especially growing up and knowing the hustle of it. So
Right.
I was anticipating doing that, but then Miss Panorama happened and the industry was shut down. There was no castings, there was no auditions. You couldn't even do like in-person photo shoots, like doing modeling work. So I thought, okay, well, I need a plan B. So at the time I was doing a few retail jobs, tutoring jobs,
Yeah.
everything was online and I discovered the world of virtual assisting on social media and I thought, okay, literally have nothing to lose at all. The stimulus checks aren't coming in anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing is working. So I thought, okay, cool. Well, other people are virtual assistants, so maybe I could be one too. I started my page. Quickly realized that I wasn't doing any virtual assisting. I was only doing social media. So then I kind of switched over to doing social media management. And then I've been pretty much doing that ever since. And I thought it was really cool because I came in with no experience. I've never stepped foot in a corporate office before. I don't even
Yeah.
really know what that would be like. I don't even know if I would be a good employee in a regular 9 to 5, and I guess I'll never know. But it was really cool because it came so naturally to me just because I grew up with social media. I had a Facebook account, like even behind my parents' back, like before they knew because I
Yeah.
just had to have it. And I actually had a social media internship where I honestly didn't learn a lot from them, but it was really cool because they just let me play. They were just like, here,
Yeah.
social media, we don't, do whatever you want. So I started doing exactly that. I started testing on that account, testing on my personal account, building my social media manager account. And I've really just been doing it ever since.
Gorgeous. I swear by an internship, first of all. I swear by an internship, whether it's like I say that that's kind of how I got started in social media because feel like I didn't even know that that was a thing. I just
Mm.
know I liked being creative. And then I got an internship where I was doing social media. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, like this is something I could do,
Yeah,
you know? I
for
tell
sure.
people all the time. So if anyone's listening to this and like is in college or even is not in college and wants their foot in the door, I love an
Do
internship.
an internship for sure. Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like how to stand out on social media. I think there
Yeah.
is a big debate of it's such a saturated space. Like, why would I even get started? And that goes for influencers and brands. Like, there's so many people on there. What are some of your best tips to standing out on social media?
Sure. Yeah. I think the first thing with standing out on socials is just to first and foremost get that out of your head because
Yeah.
it really will ruin you at the end of the day. I mean, like the self-sabotage on socials. I mean, and just having a business in general, you don't have someone else to look up to. You're really doing this on your own. So I think
Yeah.
taking that out of your head, and really treating the market like a CEO and not a creative. So creative will look at a saturated market and say, okay, well, there's already so many talented people, pretty people, smart people. Where would I fit in with a CEO? It's like, oh, cool, more data for me. What mistakes did other people make that I'm not going to do?
Yeah.
Where's the little white space that I can just put my foot in the door and just kind of like completely kick it out and destroy it. You only need
Yeah.
that little space to really, honestly open up like a new space for yourself. So I think looking at the data like a CEO is really going to help. And then you can empower yourself with information, not overwhelm yourself with information. So
Yeah.
I think the mindset aspect of that first, and then really focusing on depth, right? Because there's a lot of, and this is when I first started too, especially on TikTok. I was late to the TikTok game, and I totally said this. I was like, oh, every social media manager, wow, they're so much smarter than me. They started way before I did because I was super focused on Instagram and I didn't do TikTok.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, social media managers, 100,000 followers, they already got it. How could I just start like a new account? And again, I asked myself the same question, stand out. And what I had to do was I had to focus on depth. So what are some things that people aren't talking about that I could talk about in a new, fresh way? I didn't necessarily have to come in as the smartest person with new information, but how could I provide just a new perspective, different
Yeah.
ways to look at the same thing
We
if other
always
people.
tell our
But
clients on that note, we always tell our clients, you do not have to reinvent the wheel. You
totally.
don't have to come up with a new idea or a new, like, just because somebody else has talked about something doesn't mean you're not allowed to talk about it.
Totally, totally, totally. And that's really where that depth piece comes in. You don't have to reach a ton of new people. And let's be honest, it's hard to reach a lot of new people, especially on TikTok over, what it was a few years ago.
Right.
So depth is going to be really important. So I just kind of started creating content, and then I quickly realized like it was the personal branding aspect. It was kind of blending traditional media, which is what I grew up studying in theater, and blending that into social. So then the more that I created, the more I found where I could really find that depth. And I think that's now what I'm more known for. I did try to do like here's a trending sound video. And I was like, oh my gosh, cancel myself. I'm not doing that
Yeah.
again.
You're like, that's
Um,
not me.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
wasn't needed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, you could look at as a CEO and go, well, the market's already saturated. Someone's already filling that. I don't need to do that. That wouldn't be
Right.
helpful. So yeah, I think definitely depth is a huge focus, and specificity is going to be your secret to standing out.
I love that. Um, I heard you talk a little bit about making content that makes your audience feel something. Like you had
Mm,
said, stop trying to please the algorithm. Like
for sure.
you're not in charge of the algorithm, but what you
Sure.
can do is connect with your audience and make something that makes them feel something. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I love to think about your page and your content as an experience, maybe a movie or an episode series, and that's your entire page, and your content becomes little trailers or little other, little episodes to what that story is, so that you're really telling, a cohesive story. And then when they continue to watch it, then feelings they can really feel something out of it, not necessarily, okay, well, I'm just going to create a piece of content because I know the algorithm wants this from me or that from me.
Right.
No, it's a story, and every single story is not only about someone, but it's for someone. And I think, that's just a better mindset to approach your content. And also, if you really want to get deeper into the psychology of it, you can't make someone do something, but you can make
Right.
someone feel something, and feelings lead to actions. In the book Atomic Habits, the author talks about this of like, yeah, you can't even make yourself do something. You can't make other people do something, but you can make someone feel something, and then those feelings will lead to action. So when you think about your content, you want to create a space where people want to be involved, where they feel seen, where they feel heard, where their feelings are, important, or being talked about, so that they can relate to that. And
Yeah.
then, someone enters your space and they have a good feeling. Just like if you enter, at like a brunch spot or something, or a coffee shop, you don't really
Right.
go because of maybe that coffee is the best coffee. You kind of go to your favorite coffee shop because you feel really good there. There's a vibe to it, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of like how I like to think about content. And I think it also will cut the noise of all this algorithm hacking and the next SEO tip, right? First of all, there's not even just one algorithm, especially for talking about Instagram. The head of Instagram even said there's not just one algorithm. They actually use
Right.
multiple algorithms. So then what are you going to do? Try to hack multiple algorithms that are
Right.
made on the computer, right? No, I think we're going to lose if we
Right.
try to do that. So it's just better to think about your content as an experience and a story from someone to someone else.
Right. I love that. Tara and I have talked a little bit about like you don't really follow someone because of their tips. Like sometimes, yeah, right? You want the tips, but there's most likely multiple people that are sharing the same types of education as someone else, and you follow someone because you resonate with them or you have a connection with them. And I love your example of a coffee shop. First of
Mm.
all, I hate to say it, but kind of feel like that's a girl thing. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. One time I was with this guy and I was like, let's go get coffee. And he was like, just looking in the vicinity. We were out of town, just
Right.
looking at whatever's close enough. And it's like, I don't know, ugly coffee shops. I'm like, you know what? Politely and respectfully, I will be handling this. He's like, that is half a mile further. And I was like, but do you see what the inside looks like?
Right.
He
It's
was
not the
like, we're just getting a
vibe.
cup of coffee. I'm like, you don't get it. It's about
Yeah.
the energy of the coffee shop. I'm not just going for a cup of black coffee. Just
Yes.
saying.
Totally.
But yeah,
Totally.
totally
Totally.
true. Totally like you only follow someone because you feel something towards them. Like you're saying, you have some sort of connection with them and you want to see them regularly because you want
Mm-hmm.
that feeling again, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's kind of a good segue to storytelling because it's kind of a buzzword. Same with like authenticity. Storytelling is like everybody's telling you to do it. I think there's a lot of people who are confused because when you think of a story, like you think of like a movie story, like a plot, you know what I mean? Like I think there's some people who are confused as to how they can incorporate storytelling either in their business or as a creator. And they're like, for example, when I first started hearing this months ago, I immediately thought of like Tana Mojo story times. And I'm like, that's not what people mean because that's not how everybody's going to create. So, can you kind of explain what storytelling means and why it's so important?
Yes. And I think it comes back to, creating content from a person for a person.
Yeah.
So, yes, of course, we can understand the three tips too. That's totally fine. But the average consumer on socials is so much smarter now, and we've gotten that already. We know that already. So I think very simplified way to tell stories is just to add more context. So if you
Hmm.
were in a class, right, and your professor gave you, okay, here's the things that you need to learn and kind of bullet point them out, most people will actually probably learn through a story, through a live example, a context. And
Yeah.
this is actually called narrative paradigm theory, where we learn best through stories because we can then see ourselves
Yeah.
through the story. And then that's really where that light bulb moment can happen with your audience. And that light bulb moment, that aha moment is so crucial and so important. Again, it's not always about, like what you said before, it's not always about what you say, it's how you say it. For example,
Hmm.
your bestie could tell you, break up with your man 10,000 times. You're like, okay, okay. And then they can word it, your bestie, your ride or die could say it, in another way. And you're like, oh, you know what? I get it now.
Yeah.
So it's really about how do we find that light bulb moment? How do we give that context so that that person can see themselves through what we're trying to say? And that's really what storytelling is. You don't need, and I talk about this a lot when I say selfish vlogs and unselfish vlogs, of like, you don't need all the exposition. You don't need, like a clear beginning, middle, and end. You can leave us
Right.
on a cliffhanger. You don't have to go and like tell a whole movie in 1 minute to 2 minutes, right? For a short form video. It's just more about giving that context and that live example
Yeah.
over here's 3 things that you need to know.
Right. It's just a different way to share your experience or your tips. And I love that you brought that up actually, because our last episode that just went live was Tara and I kind of scrapped the outline and we
Mm,
were like, we're just going to talk. And I had said on there, I was like, when I hear people or I read something that's like, these are 3 reasons why you should do whatever, it's in one ear, out the other. Or I read it and I'm like, whatever. But I
totally.
was saying the reason we did an episode like that was because I love episodes where, like podcast episodes, where it's just like internal calls. Like they just record either calls with their clients or calls like between 2 employees. Because it's kind of the same thing. I can see myself like, oh, I have a position that's like that. I can see how this works versus someone being like, these are 3 things that we do in our agency, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
who's going to really care about the 3 things that you do in your agency if if it has nothing to do with me? And I
Exactly.
think maybe that's a little bit of a kind of a hard pill to swallow. Like, oh,
Mhm.
nobody cares. And just have to think about it in a way of like you think the same thing, right? Our
Yeah,
egos are
exactly.
going to tell us, is this for me? Is what's in it for me? Come on. If it's nothing,
Yeah.
I'm scrolling.
I always tell people too, I'm like, not to sound harsh, but like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. You have to phrase things, you have to word things, you have to make content in a way that's going to make somebody care. And the best way to make somebody care is to be able to have them picture themselves in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Make it relevant to them.
Totally, totally. And if that makes you, because obviously that's, it's easy to be like, yeah, nobody cares. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do after? It's
Yeah.
actually you have a good message. If you lead with integrity and you have a good message out there, it's almost just like, well, how can you frame that message to reach more people? Because people need to hear that message. And if you're
Yeah.
not framing it the right way, then what a shame would that be if you didn't make any of those changes and then your message, wouldn't get out.
Right.
So nobody cares, but they need to. So do something so that you
Yeah,
can grab our
just
attention.
change it.
Mhm.
Just make a shift.
Totally, totally.
Cool. Well, I want to jump into collaborations. I saw that
Yeah.
you had kind of a recent collaboration with Sky of Managed by Sky and Kristen Busquet, who are both previous podcast guests. I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Was such a huge fan of both of them and I adore
Yeah.
both of them. And they both are so powerful in the space in their own ways. And honestly, the collaboration really just happened super quick. It was literally just a simple little text message, a little group chat, and we were like, you want to do something together? And then we said yes. Um, and I think the reason why it worked so well was because we truly led with community over competition. But it
Yeah.
actually happened so naturally because even though, and I think this comes back to the point you were talking about before, even though we are in the same space, we are creators, business owners, we work with creators, we had super specialized sections about social media that we
Yeah.
focus on. And we actually filled in one another's gaps. And we found that to be super, super clear, not only in, what we were selling, but just the way that we think and the way that we process our back end systems, all of that. So it worked out really, really well. And we all just realized, oh, yeah, we have blind spots and we all fill them out. So
Yeah.
moving forward.
I love that. What exactly is it that you guys did together?
Yeah. So we did a course bundle together. So we basically had individual courses and then we did it at like a bundled price. And then we had like a few little extra things in there. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Um, I do kind of just want to dive into collaboration as a whole because I think there's so many benefits to it, but it does have to fit naturally. Have you
Mm.
ever done any sort of collaborations that didn't feel super authentic to you?
Mm. I honestly haven't done I don't do a lot of collaborations.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not open to them. I just think I'm really picky because I've heard a lot of horror stories
Yeah, well,
about
I
them.
think I think it makes sense to be picky. I think there are some people who obviously everybody knows the benefits of collaborating in the sense of like you share your audience with someone else and vice versa and you reach a wider audience and whatever.
Totally.
But I do think especially like I think back to like YouTube days, early YouTube days,
Mm,
people would do collabs all the time and it would be people that they weren't really friends with but they had maybe a similar audience. But it was always like clear, right? When they were on camera together, you were like, this is weird. Like, I don't
yeah.
know why you guys are on
Yeah.
camera together. You know what I mean?
Totally, totally, and I think, again, we're smarter now than we ever were before, so we can sniff that out right away, like,
Oh,
"What's
yeah.
happening over here?" So totally get that. Sky and I were actually mutuals before I was with Kristen, so it worked out really well because we had already had, like, conversations in the past before, we were already,
Yeah.
engaging with we actually had, like, met up for coffee, like, months before the collab even happened.
Oh, I
So I
love
think
that.
it, like, organically happened, and that was really, really nice. But sorry, what was your what was the other point that we were coming back to? I totally went on in, like, a tangent
Oh,
a
just like
tangent right there.
finding, like, how do you find someone that you click with? I mean, it has to be organic, right? How are you going about that? Are you just reaching out and then, like, down the line, you guys are like, maybe we should collaborate? Or do you reach out to someone and say, hey, I think we would both benefit from this? I think we, have a similar audience and we talk about similar things and have similar beliefs, whatever. Like, what's the right way to go about that? Let's say someone who has never done a collaboration before is
Uh,
like, I just want to work with somebody.
sure, yeah, I think definitely building up that relationship first, and
Yeah.
even going at it for, like, a few months and actually caring about the person, maybe, like, stalking them a little bit, being really, really sure that you wanna collab with that person, because you never know, down the line, if you didn't build that kind of organic relationship with that person, sticky things can happen, especially when money is involved and business is
Yeah.
involved. That's a huge thing. So if you're collaborating on, let's say, not like a joint business venture, but collaborating on something that has to do with business, I get a contract in there, not legal advice, but
Yeah.
just from experience, we'll get a contract in there. But yeah, I really think it's just be their friend online first, and then go from there.
Absolutely.
If you're like going in cold DMing and just saying like, "Hey, we should collab," and then you've never talked to me before, I'd probably be like, well, what are we gonna collab on?
Yeah. That's even how I feel sometimes reaching out to people on the podcast. But in my brain, everybody that I've reached out to be on the podcast are people that I follow. And like half of them
Mm,
follow me back. Like we maybe don't talk, but we
mm,
definitely
mhm,
know
mhm.
of each other. But in
Sure,
my brain, like that makes a lot more sense than if I just reach out to like someone who I saw one video, but I saw that they had like 400,000 subscribers, like or
totally,
followers or whatever. Like that doesn't make sense because I don't know anything about what they do, you know?
totally. Yeah, exactly, yes.
Perfect. Well, I love that. I love that you three collaborated because like I said, a big fan of all three of yours. Um let's talk about content creation because obviously that is a huge part, if not the main part of being a creator online. And sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes
Mm.
it is so exhausting. So I kind of want to, before I jump into like your tips, what does your process look like? Are you like a batch content creator? Do you like plan everything out in a calendar? Do you go by day? Like you film as creative thoughts come to you? Like what does your process look like?
Yeah, so it's kind of a hybrid of everything that you talked about, honestly. So at the beginning of the month, I'll have like brand staples, things I always talk about, based on the strategy with like content pillars and all of that. So we'll just assume that all of that is done. So at the beginning of the month, I have ideas that I really repeat, pretty much all the time, and I'll
Yeah.
allocate those accordingly. If there's a launch, allocate, accordingly. But put into simple terms, beginning of the month, I have a general overview of what my content's going to be. And then I'll actually create for myself on a weekly to bi-weekly schedule. Lately, it's been more of a weekly schedule just because things have been so crazy. But again, I also love doing a nice B-roll moment,
Yeah.
photo shoots with thousands of videos that I can just grab and edit, especially for Instagram. So, but when it comes to TikTok, when I have to be on camera, I'm usually at a bi-weekly schedule. So I'll have one filming day of the week. I'll film everything. If there's more ideas that come to me, totally fine. I allow myself to be like, okay, well, I have some time, or I could just whip this out really, really quick. I could stitch this video really quick, and then I'll go from there. So it's a little bit of both where there's some structure, but I still give myself some flexibility. And I think that that has been really effective for me because there's a lot of stuff in the business happening. So as much as I would love to just always be creating intuitively, I also do want to, give myself like a bank of content to kind of sit
Yeah,
on just in case that doesn't happen.
absolutely.
And also, I work with business owners mostly. So for them, there's no intuitive creating. There's no way that
Right.
that will work for long term. So it's really important for me as a social media manager and as their social media manager to have that experience under my belt to understand, like, if even though intuitively creating would work for me, it doesn't always work
Hmm.
for especially business owners first, like business owners who are business owners turning into creators, not the other way around, which is kind of how I started. I was a creator first and then I opened my business. So it's really important for me to understand, okay, how does that structure fit into my life and how can I use my own experiences to help them? So with my clients, it's different. It's either weekly or bi-weekly. Obviously, there's no intuitive creating when you have a manager. There's just like no way
Right.
that workflow would work. But for myself, it's half half. So there's a general structure and then I kind of create intuitively from there.
Yeah. That was something that I think more so Tara, when she first started, she's very much an intuitive. Like, as
Mm,
an idea comes, she'll make it day of. And we kind of had to sit down and be like, it's not sustainable. We cannot grow a business, especially working with business owners. It's not going to
totally.
work unless you're working with one company and you're in house.
Totally.
You
Mhm.
otherwise can't really do intuitively. But I do love that you kind of have that booklet of ideas going into the month of like
Mm,
that's kind of how I do it. I do it on like a smaller scale where I typically go in. I do like bi-weekly. So I do like 2
mm,
weeks in advance, but I always start with all of the ideas of like, okay, what's coming out this month? What do I want to highlight? Whatever. What's hot in pop culture that I might want to work with in terms of like a
yeah.
post for awareness, things like that. But I always write out all of my ideas before I start any of the creation. I did want to talk to you about, I know you do use, like you said, a lot of B-roll type of
Mm.
content. When you do that, are you like, I have an idea and I'm going to go shoot, like I have a vision, or is it like you're just out and you take the content and then you're like, how can I use the content?
Oh yeah, I don't know if this makes me a little bit of a narcissist, but I just will film myself. I'll film myself and it's just become a habit because I've been filming myself for so long of like I will naturally just get a ton of different shots. Zoom in,
Yeah,
zoom out, pan left, pan right, whatever the vibe is. And then I'll just kind of trust that I can edit something
right.
afterwards. But if it was specifically like, for example, if you look at my Instagram, it's a lot of B-roll from my rebrand shoot that I did. I had a friend do that for me. So either
Yeah.
get yourself a good VA that knows your angles or a bestie. My bestie did it for me, and I love her forever. We had literally thousands. Either 1,000 to 2,000 clips that she did for me, and the whole day she basically just
That's the
followed me
best way to do
around.
it. I'm telling
Yeah,
you, we had our rebrand shoot and I was like, everybody here, get your cameras out.
yeah,
I was like, if you are not in front of the camera, you need to be taking video. And I was
literally.
like so strict about it because I'm the one that makes all of the content for it. So I was like, every one of you, I was like, all four of you, cameras out,
Yeah.
cameras out. I need something to work with.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, whether it takes 2 hours or 4
Yeah, 4
hours. I
hours.
don't care. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was literally that. So, you know, so grateful for my bestie because she took all that video footage, and I did that in 2022, and I still use it today.
Yeah. That's the other thing is like I actually had an intern that I had to have this conversation with her where she was like, "Oh, I noticed that this video has already been used." Okay, you can still use it. Like you can use it again. It's not like you use it one time and that video can never see the light of day again. Like use it multiple times. Use it in different ways. Maybe it's in like a montage or something, or maybe like you zoom in on the footage or whatever it is. Like you can use things over and over again.
Oh, yeah, I've used the heck out of that B-roll footage, and I just use it over and over and over again. And I think that's actually something that a lot of business owners and creators will tell me. It's like, "Oh, well, we've already used this," or
Yeah.
It's already been done." And I go, what do you
Just
mean?
use it in a
You have
different
to
way
use it over honestly, I
or
even
repost
say
it.
absolutely repost it again.
Mhm.
And why that works so well is one, you've already made it. And if it worked, it works. So again, like why would you want to constantly be
Yeah.
creating new content long term, right? So that's one, easier on you. And brand recognition is so important. And the only way that you're going to get brand recognition is to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And we don't
Yeah.
question the big businesses that do that. McDonald's doesn't do a little switch up with their colors or logo or their
Yeah.
catchphrase, but all of a sudden, I think because we come at it at that again, that creative
Mhm.
point of view of like constantly trying to reinvent ourselves when it actually hurts you when you don't repeat yourself. So next time, you think, oh, well, I've already done that. It's like, well, no, you're actually helping us. Human beings need to hear something 7 times to remember it, 27 times to
Exactly.
really remember it.
I
You're
say
helping
that
us.
all the time in discovery calls, like
Love it.
everything. I'm like, you have to see something so many times. I was like, even think about yourself. If you saw an ad on Instagram, most of the time you probably aren't going to buy the first time you see it, but you're
Mhm,
going to be fed that ad multiple times,
mhm,
or even like in a way broader look at things. Like maybe you did, let's say you did buy the first time you saw the ad. That probably wasn't the first time you saw that kind of product, though.
mhm.
So I had used the example in one of our past episodes of the like hair rollers, the
Oh, yeah, those are everywhere.
yeah. So obviously those have been everywhere for like a year. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe I'll use them, whatever. See them millions of times, never bought them. Finally, one of my friends that's an influencer made a video and I was like, sold. I'll be buying that now.
Totally,
But I had to see it like literally 30 times on different videos before I was like, okay, I'll buy that now.
totally. Yes,
But
and
if
yeah.
people didn't repeat that content, I wouldn't have made that purchase.
Yeah, and that's when you have to put your CEO hat on and not just the creative hat on to be like, okay, well, what's gonna benefit my business? What's gonna make me the most sales? Not that it has to be like an icky way of like pushing it down people's throats,
Right.
but pushing it down people's throats is very different than simply repeating the message.
Yeah. And the thing is like you can repurpose the message, right?
Mm,
Like I even say on Instagram, okay, if it was a carousel, turn it into a reel. Put it on
totally,
your stories. Make a different version of a reel where you're talking to the camera.
totally,
Repurpose it and repost it. Like there's different ways for you to share the message over and over again.
totally. Yes.
Okay, let's see. Okay. So I did want to talk about, sorry, my brain is like I
No,
had my
that's okay.
Um, you talked about how creating content and filming has kind of become a habit for you. And
Mm,
I've seen
mhm.
a few videos about this from creators, like make this a habit and you'll thank yourself later, essentially,
Yeah.
like when you have all of this footage. How would you recommend people actually go about making this a habit? Because I feel like
Mm,
it's easier said than done for most
yeah.
people.
Yeah, it's a lot of work in the front end, but
Hmm.
just like the first time going to the gym, just like the first time waking up early, it sucks when you first do it, but once you do it, it becomes so natural to you. So I actually got this idea from Atomic Habits, which I feel like is a classic
Yeah.
business mindset book, but they talk
My
about how.
therapist actually recommended it to me. She was
Oh,
like, I
really?
think you would love this. I was like, thank you so much, Queen.
I love it. Yes, it's a classic for a reason, and they talk about habit stacking.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can do things two ways, or you can kind of mix in between of like finding one day where you do batch creation. But habit stacking is also great too because then you're finding little pockets of time that are very natural to you and that work organically, like it's already a habit for you, and then you just put content creation on top of it so that it's a little bit easier than just saying, okay, well, I have to create content every second, or I have to, oh, yeah, this is good. Like, when do I create content? And then you run out of time. You can set up systems for yourself. And I think at the end of the day, that's how you make content creation work for you is you create a
Hmm.
system that works for you and works for your lifestyle. So that's what I would say as far as two ways that you can make content creation a habit is either you just sit down and find a day that you batch create. And if filming intuitively just doesn't feel good for you, or again, if you're a business owner and it's just like, okay, listen, it's not possible. I have 10 meetings.
Yeah.
totally fine. Habit stacking is gonna be for you because you're just really, again, stacking another
I
habit on top
love
of
that
a
you
habit.
brought up habit stacking. That's such a good example of it. Because if you're already, everybody already has habits, everybody already
Mhm.
has routines, like just add that onto it. So, like, for example, if you like morning routine type of vlog videos are so popular, okay, like you can have an abundant amount of morning routine and vlog footage if when you go to make your coffee, you just make it a habit to set your camera up
Totally,
first because you're going to make your coffee every morning anyways. Like
totally.
maybe set it up in a different location every morning. It doesn't have to be. And then you get, okay, one clip a day, better than no clips, better
Yeah,
than nothing. It
exactly.
doesn't have to be super hard. And then in terms of batching, that's typically how I do it in terms of like TikTok, even.
Mm,
I'll put it on my calendar and I'm like, okay, Friday morning, I'm blocking out this time. Nobody can book a meeting with me. Nobody can book whatever. This is my time to film TikToks. But every now and again, the other thing is I feel like you have to have some leeway. Every now and again, if I'm like Friday at 9 a.m., I will be filming. And then it's Friday at 8:30. And I'm like, the literal last thing I want to do is film. I'm like, you know
yeah.
what? Do I have a video that can go live today? Yeah, I'll be doing this on Monday instead.
Totally. Yeah. And I think we have more content than we think that we have. You
Absolutely.
know, you can, if you have an idea and you don't want to be on camera, make it a carousel post. Use that and use the copy that you would have spoken and type it on screen and make it a
Yeah.
carousel post, or get some B-roll and do like a little trending audio if you really want to be consistent. And also, even if it's like, oh, well, that's not my normal content. Again, thinking like a CEO, what if it does work? You literally will never know if it works if it's sitting in your drafts. And for the sake
Yeah.
of consistency, also to build that mindset of like, it doesn't have to be perfect every time. You can
Right.
play and test and do new things. And your account's not going to be, unless you are breaking, community guidelines, but your account's, not going to tank just
Yeah.
because one video is different or one video isn't exactly what you wanted it to be.
I think
So,
testing different, like you said, I say this in one-on-one calls all the time. I'm like, you're stuck in your ways. Try something different. Like for example, I have just started using Lemon 8 and I kind of feel like I'm
mm,
late to it, but I love that it's just a different format. And like a
yeah.
really great example of this is, you know who Harley Jordan is on
No, I'm
Instagram?
not
I love her. I feel like
familiar.
I bring her up a lot. But she started as we had her on the podcast like probably almost a year ago, but she started as like how to do transitions, I believe. And then she did a lot of reels. And now she's really transitioned from just video mostly to she
Uh-huh.
takes a lot of her Lemon 8 content and moves it over to Instagram. And it has done
Oh,
so well. And it's like her audience knew her as one thing. And over the last like year and a half of these transitions, she's started doing these carousel posts that are doing so well, which is also like something to say carousels aren't dead. I know there's so many people that think the only way to grow on social media is with video.
totally.
That's not like necessarily true.
Totally.
But like just a great like she totally shifted gears. She's talking about the same thing. She's just formatting it in a different way.
Totally. Yes, I love that. And I love that she's bringing Lemonade to Instagram because I know Lemonade, that their like look is it's like really fun, and I think
Yeah,
that
it's
works
so
really well on
cute. And
Instagram.
it's so like accessible in the sense of like it makes graphics so easy, like the
Yeah.
templates and stuff. And it's so cute. Like I'm having so much fun with it. And to be honest, this is the first time in a while that I feel like I've been having fun with social media
Oh my god.
because
Wow.
some people like obviously if you work in social media, you've felt this way where when you're so consumed by it,
Mm,
you do burn out or you just like don't feel creative or whatever it is. So I
yeah.
feel like getting onto Lemonade, I was like, this is so fun and this is new and it's like something to learn in a fun way.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I need to get on it because I've just been watching everyone on TikTok talk about it. But maybe
I'm
after this
just like,
call.
I went into it with zero expectations. I was like, let's make anything. Like, I was more so like, I went into it being like, okay, let's see what this is about. Maybe like I can put the agency on there or something, but like, I don't really want to jump on with a brand. So I'm just going
Mm,
to test it out with myself. And I feel like it's just been so fun. I also just love like visual design
mm,
a lot. So it's like pretty good for someone who has like, most creatives are visual, but
yeah. Yeah.
anyways. Cool. Last thing I really wanted to touch on is engagement. I think it's super natural for engagement to drop. And I had heard there's like a report that comes out every year, and I had listened to this podcast where they kind of covered this report. I don't remember who does the report, But engagement rate, I tell people this all the time too. The average engagement rate, aside from TikTok for every platform, is under 1%. So
Mm,
I always like to tell people that because I'm like, okay, let's say your engagement rate dropped. It's all right. You're still way above the average engagement rate. Like,
right.
but
Yes.
it's super natural for you to go through ebbs and flows with your engagement. That's just what happens. But I would love if you have any tips on how to boost your engagement. Let's say somebody has seen kind of a fall. They're not getting as many comments, just people are not really engaging with their content as much anymore. What
Yeah.
tips would you have for someone like that?
Yeah, I love that you brought that study up too. I believe I saw one, and I think the average was like 1 to 3. It's something that's like
It's just
super
low. It's really
low,
low.
right? And especially during, and there's 2 seasons where this really happens the most: summertime now,
Mhm.
and the holidays, right? Because
Because
everyone is
people aren't
on
on
their
their phone.
phones.
I say that to people all the time. I'm like, it's really not as like
It's not that deep.
it's not that deep. It's literally like the weather's nice, people want to be outside, or it's like holidays, people are with their family, they're not going to be on
Totally.
their phones.
Yes, yeah, and that, I get that our egos, can get hit by that. I've totally felt it before. It is totally natural, but the only guarantee social media gives us is inconsistency. So I
Yeah.
think, really understanding, yeah, there are going to be those ebbs and flows, but if you are like, okay, I really want to up, my engagement game, not just for the numbers, but you genuinely want to create a community online, number one mistakes I see when people say, "Oh, no one's engaging with my content." I look at their comment section; it's dry. Not even
Yeah.
a like. You didn't even press like on your comments on your video. So
Yeah.
make sure to like them. I would also say comment back, and if you like, your comment section should be zones for conversation. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
obviously, yes, there's going to be those that you just kind of be like, thank you so much, yada, yada, yada. But what about if instead of that, or some of them, the ones that, you can really have a conversation with, ask them a question back, use their first name. Your first name goes such a long way.
Absolutely.
You can think someone's saying your first name and they're just screaming out and you're just going to look. Our first name, that's going to grab our
It feels
attention, right?
personal.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So I would say that engagement also is something you have to give to get. So spend some time doing some outbound engagement. It literally can be 15 to 20 minutes a
So,
day.
on that topic, that was one of my last questions for you.
Oh,
Do you have any sort of strategy that you do when you do outbound engagement? Like, who are you commenting on? How are you finding the people that you're
mm,
engaging with?
yeah. So I actually don't do any outbound engagement for any of my clients, which I know is kind of not really common. I used to, but what I found is when I did that, my clients would not be active at all on their own socials.
Mm,
So what I suggest is, for my clients, I suggest that they do some type of engagement on their account, or have someone that is super super close to them, like an executive assistant, do
yeah,
it. But to keep some type of activity. So ways that I would do this before, kind of do this now on my own page and advise my clients to do this, is look at clients that match your ideal client avatar. So you can do this through hashtags. You can do this through just searching up keywords. So let's say you're a lash artist in Southern California, right? So you might want to look for Southern California bloggers. You might want to look for hashtag SoCal Life and kind of see, what's going on there. You might want to look at the OC Fair and the 626 Night Market are happening in Southern California. So maybe look at that and see if you can kind of match to see if your ideal client, is kind of hanging out there, and you can
yeah.
engage with them.
I
Um,
always lately I've been doing like a lot of our clients are based in Austin. So
oh,
I'll look at really popular, and a lot of our clients I will also say are like cosmetic type of
oh,
clients, like
okay, yep.
beauty and
Mhm,
cosmetic industry. So
mhm,
I'm looking at like if people who have tagged themselves at like rooftop bars or like
totally,
restaurants that, and I don't
totally.
think people utilize the geo tags enough in terms of like doing their outbound engagement. I love it. I love it because I'm like, you're in my area. If you're going to this restaurant, you probably have like kind of just the vibe of the restaurant kind of is matching
Yep, yep.
someone who might want like their hair done or something, you know?
Yes, yes, exactly. So I would say have a clear ideal client avatar, or like know who your ideal client is, and then start utilizing, hashtags, geotags, SEO, start searching up those words, and then engage genuinely with those people, not just a little smiley face emoji.
Yeah.
Maybe something a little more fun.
Maybe a little more than the emojis. I've been loving the GIFs, to be honest.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm kind of anti-GIF in my personal life. I find them really cringy. But in my business life, I'm like, it's so much easier. And it's getting across what I feel about your post without me having to like overthink what I'm going to type.
And it takes up so much space.
Yeah.
So it stands out a little
You
bit
can't
more.
not see it.
Totally. Yes, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, I loved this, Alyssa. Those are all of the questions I have for you. Can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok at Inspired Media Co. I would love to hang out. Maybe your biggest takeaways from this podcast, DM me. And if you do DM me, just make sure you do the little sparkle emoji so I can prioritize. Because honestly, my DMs get a little bit messy and crazy.
A little
I'm working on
busy.
that. Yeah. But yeah, that's how we can connect.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Alyssa. I loved this conversation. I'm sure our audience is going to love it as well. And we will talk to you later.
Thank you.